War is not the answer to conflict in the 21st century. Democracy now.
We have a decision to make every hour of every day, and that is whether to represent the sword or the shield. Democracy now.
Democracy now. Democracy now.
But I do think, and this is a sad reflection on the Middle East where so little hope seems to lie on the ground these days, I do think that my privilege turned into a curse. And I think that my book is probably the story of my curse. Thank you very much, Leslie.
And we like them. Indeed, we call them strong men. Later, when they cross us, we'll call them dictators. And then we'll biff them. And then we'll find some more. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry it's such a grim lecture to you tonight.
Tolerance is a virtue. But tolerance, coupled with passivity, is a vice. Thank you.
So unless social justice is brought front and center into any opposition around climate change, it's really going to end up being a question of haves and have-nots in the climate maelstrom.
We Gold Star families are the human cost of war. We are left behind to pick up the pieces of our broken lives. We will go on with our lives, but there will always be a part of our heart that is desperately empty.
But it wasn't us that made her fall. No, you can't blame us at all. Who killed Rachel? Rachel Corey. Rachel.
Tolerable in the Middle East, which has been understood for since the 1930s to be the core of energy production for the world. The U.S. is not going to let it get out of control easily.
Most people in the United States seem to not really get on at least a deeper level what the great journalist I.F. Stone said so succinctly: governments lie.
We supposedly live in a democracy, and we supposedly have a government that the law should make transparent.
We are a war-weary world grieving and groaning to get rid of this ugly and barbaric means of resolving.
How many of them is it going to take until we get off our apathetic asses and say enough is enough?
I still remain optimistic. I still maintain my belief, as Carl Sandburg put it, in the people, yes, although they have been trying my soul a little lately, I must say.
When we fight for a minimum wage, we are fighting for equality. When we fight for a minimum wage increase, we are fighting, quite literally, for democracy.
99%. We are the 99%. We are. Move your money. Move your money.
Hello and welcome to Other Voices, brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. I'm your host, Paul George. On this month's edition of Other Voices, we're going to return to the question of immigration reform. Hello and welcome to Other Voices, brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. I'm your host, Paul George. On this month's edition of Other Voices, we're going to take a look at the recently completed interim nuclear agreement between... On this month's edition of Other Voices, we're going to examine in depth a recent speech given by President Obama. On this month's edition of Other Voices, we're going to talk about something that's not been in the news very much, purposefully so, maybe, and that's the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We're going to take a look at the concept of corporations being people and money being the same thing as free speech. On this month's edition of Other Voices, we're going to take a look at the latest round of negotiations between Israel and Palestine. On this month's edition of Other Voices, we're going to take a look back. This summer marks the 50th anniversary of a project called Freedom Summer, and we're going to learn.
From the beginning of the civil rights struggle, there was this understanding that there were parts of the South that were even more intransigent, even more committed to the Jim Crow system than the other places.
You've been watching Other Voices, brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. We'll be back next month on the first show. Thanks for watching. When you start bringing in equipment like this, they become an army instead of a town police force. And I think it starts a separation between the police and the citizens they're supposed to start protecting. This is a military weapon used for fighting wars. It has no place in a civilian environment. The famous Mario Savio speech comes from December 2nd as they were gathering outside Sproul Hall and getting ready to go in and take over the administration building and do a sit-in. Because of this speech that so electrified everyone and really summed things up. So
It don't make sense when you can't make peace. Don't make sense when you can't make peace, y'all.